Hey guys, this is Lala Legacy and welcome back to another episode of Symphonic Rain. So before we jump in, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because that would mean the whole world to me, and afterwards, if you like this video, hit that like button too. Before we start, I think that they are still doing some work on the roof. So if you can hear like banging in the background, that's what that is. I'm so frustrated and so done with them doing this. I've had headache after headache after headache, and I'm just done. Anyways, let's jump in. I woke up unusually early today. Once I was ready, I headed straight for the institute, as I did so often the previous year. I had to report to Miss Cordell first thing. Lise had been set to become my partner since the other night, when the word partner finally came out of her mouth. The clock told me it was 15 minutes before the start of the first period. Miss Cordell wasn't in the room. Perhaps she had gone somewhere. Since the door wasn't locked, she would probably be back soon. While there aren't any private lessons from today onward, the teachers were to remain present at school. And let me actually put my glasses on because it's kind of hard to see. This was mostly to provide extra lessons to students willing to come and receive them. Even if they weren't, a teacher was to be available to their students at all times. I had assumed there wouldn't be an opportunity for me to play my foretell, so I left it at home. And just when I started wondering what to do with the time until Miss Cordell arrived, the door opened. Oh. Huh? Oh, Chris. Good morning. Morning. Looks like you remembered our agreement. Yes, that's what I came here for. Good job. I will let the reserve candidate I had chosen for you know about it. I haven't said anything yet. How did you know? I could tell from the look on your face. How long do you think you've been under my guidance? About 2 years, I suppose. Indeed. In any case, at this point in time, there isn't much else for me to teach you. Miss Cordell smiled at me. Give it your best during the recital. Until then, it would be better if you didn't come here too often. I understand. I won't bother you any further. It's not that. It's just that he shows up here sometimes. Is that so? His special classes are still ongoing, even though he no longer has anyone to teach. Huh? Oh, what's he doing all by himself in the lecture room? Beats me. Compose, maybe. He used to do that a lot during classes back when I was a student, she said wistfully. Judging from Miss Cordell's behavior, she didn't seem to hold that bad of an impression of Grave. If you took away his strict way of teaching, maybe he was actually a decent person. If that was the case, then there would be a chance he might acknowledge Lisa's vocal talents if we managed to put up a convincing performance. So, you didn't bring your foretell today? I just came here to report. Are you practicing properly? I am. Besides, if I came here too often, I would be causing you trouble. I thought you were supposed to be, in the dark about my partner. Nice excuse to be neglecting practice, she finished jokingly and smiled. Then, if you need help, I'll be here for you at any time. Thank you very much. I bowed deeply before leaving the classroom. It was still early. However, Lise wouldn't be coming over until her classes were done. There was no point waiting for her here, so I decided to go home. I was in my room, idly playing my foretell, awaiting Lise's arrival. However, classes should have been long over by now. Freshmen had homeroom and miscellaneous activities, so they wouldn't be able to leave right after class, but even so, it was getting really late now. I wonder what's taking her. She's not coming, huh? Said Forney disappointingly, while floating in midair above the foretell. Lise had come over for Natalie as well, but Forney never really showed herself at that time. perhaps out of consideration for me. Added to that, she had yet to hear Lise sing. Rather than piling up pretty words to describe her voice, it would be far more effective to just let her hear it. So I had hoped she would have been able to soon. But I suppose I'll wait a bit longer. I placed my fingers back on the keyboard. I actually hadn't played the piece in question in front of Forney. I didn't think there was much point to it without Lise's voice to carry it. I picked a different place. I picked a different piece and performed it with Forney singing along. It was getting really late. How strange. Yeah! Forney seemed to be getting uneasy as well. I had considered going over to her house several times, but chances seemed pretty high we would miss each other. After all, she was supposed to come over here after she finished her business. Coming! It was probably Lise, as I opened the door in a rush. I'm sorry. Lise? Lise stood there with a pained expression on her face. I could see immediately she wasn't feeling well, so like last time I tried to get her into the room as quickly as I could. Before I could, however, Lise raised her arm and showed me what she was holding in her hand. It was the umbrella I'd bought and forced upon her last time. So you used it. Looking closely, there were drops of water dripping down from the umbrella, and the girl was completely dry. Anyway, come on in. Okay. I directed her to a chair, then went to make her a warm drink. And like last time, I tried asking her for the reason she was late. So, what happened this time? What's with the bandage around your neck? Well, that's... Her throat appeared to hurt a lot. Lise was able to continue with a hoarse voice, but then she would cough and her face would distort into a pained grimace, so I decided to handle further communication in writing. The things Lise wrote down indicated she had caught a cold. It had affected her throat, making her unable to produce her voice. Seeing her here in front of me, I could tell how painful it was for her. In any case, the bandage was apparently soaked in herbal medicine, alleviating the pain on her throat. You caught a cold? Having finished writing, Lisa gave me a nod. Although her throat hurt, it seemed it wasn't as serious as I had initially feared. As long as she wasn't forced to speak, she didn't look to be in pain. So, why did you come? As I said before, you shouldn't push yourself. Lise shook her head. She then continued on paper. As long as I don't speak, I am fine. Also, we made a promise to meet today, so I didn't want to make you worry. I get the feeling we had this exact conversation before. You caught a cold, right? You don't have a fever? Lise shook her head as I put a hand to her forehead. Doesn't look like it. Thank goodness. Hey, is she unable to sing? Forney asked in a worried tone. She had been quiet up until now, as I couldn't respond to her anyway. Making sure Lise didn't notice, I bent my head into Forney's direction and shook it lightly. Anyway, practicing won't be possible today. Lise wrote some words on paper and showed them to me. Please let me listen to you play the foretell. That wasn't much of a problem, as I had been playing with Forney all day, and was originally supposed to play with her anyway. Just that, playing without being able to hear Lise's voice felt a bit desolate. While I never felt that way when playing alone, now that she was sitting next to me it was different. Sure, I guess. Same piece as usual? I lightly nodded to Forney, then went to sit behind my foretell. So, there's no vocalist. Oh well. Here I go. Forney had relocated to the desk where she could hear the sound of my foretell best, her mood apparently having taken a turn for the better. I started out well. As I hadn't heard Lise singing for a while, I was kind of starting to miss it now. Lise was sitting with her cafe latte in hand, intently listening to my performance, while Forney was staring at me with wide eyes for some reason. My fingers were moving smoothly, my senses existing in some place far away. Lise. Just Lise. I embedded everything about her into my notes. In my performance, I had all but replaced the original creator's intent of the piece with my own feelings. Playing piece after piece, Forney gradually seemed to be getting into it, and had even begun singing along. Time had flown by as I had been playing the many pieces I knew, like my and Forney's practice piece, as well as Fal's piece. Whew, let's call it a day. Thank you very much, Lise wrote in pretty handwriting, then remaining seated, bowed her head to me. You're welcome. Today's performance was magnificent. It was the first time I heard these pieces, but it was as if I could hear the accompanying songs in my mind. Really? The fact that Forney had been singing along flashed through my mind for an instant. However, no one else besides me had ever managed to hear her before. Besides, she didn't react when Forney talked to me earlier, so it might really just have been her imagination. Oh well, maybe you should go home soon? Lise glanced at the clock and seemed taken aback. This is bad, huh? It's pretty late, so I'll walk you home again. Ignoring Lise shaking her head, I went to grab my coat. Come on, let's go. Umbrella raised, we walked the streets at night. While it were only short distances from my room to the main street and from there to Lise's house, we crept close to each other so as to stay dry. She was walking normally now, her sprained ankle having apparently healed. We had walked all the way to Lise's house, nearly shoulder to shoulder, and had exchanged only a few words. There we are. I took the initiative so that Lise wouldn't have to talk. Then I decided to confirm our plan for the coming days. But you can't do much with that throat for a while. No need to speak. Just nod or shake your head to my questions. Lise nodded once. What should we do about practice in the meantime? I guess you can't answer that. We can't afford to drop practice completely, right? Nod. What about a practice room at school? Shake. So just take it easy then? Shake. Want to come to my room? Nod. Yes. Okay, you're welcome anytime. I'll do my shopping and such while you have class. Lise nodded vigorously. Then I'll see you tomorrow? Lise shook her head sadly. Are you busy tomorrow? Nod. I see. But then again, even if you did come, all I'd be able to do is let you listen to me play. This time, Lise didn't move her head, but just smiled at me sweetly. So the next time you'll be able to come is Friday? Lise nodded again. After that, she waved at me and walked back to her house, the umbrella firmly in her hand. She might have slipped out of the window as she didn't take the front door, but rather some side path I couldn't see from here. After she disappeared from sight, I went home. I'm home. Ah, welcome back! Despite it being the second time I'd gone out today, Forney had prepared a towel for me again. I walked into my room while drying my hair and body. It's a shame you didn't get to hear her sing. Yeah, kinda, but I got to hear you play, which is enough for me. But you can listen to that anytime, can't you? It was the first time I heard that piece. Oh, right. But what makes it so special? Is it a love song? Why do you ask? No reason. It just seemed like one to me. It's probably not. Really? It sounded similar to the piece we usually perform together. No, I think it's totally different. Well, sure, the melody and such is different, but isn't the atmosphere similar? I just got the feeling it was, that's all. She didn't seem to be trying to tease me. It was her honest opinion. Soon after that, perhaps because of the time, she wished me good night and disappeared. I never learned what business she had attended to on Thursday, but Lisa and I spent the next 2 days at my place. Her throat hadn't fully healed yet, so singing still wasn't in the realm of possibility. In fact, ever since we officially became partners, we haven't been able to practice at all. First, her injured foot, followed by her absence during New Year's. To top it off, when she finally did come back, she had a sore throat. It seemed luck was not on our side. Even so, Lisa kept coming over to listen to me play. Today was no exception. Lisa was supposed to arrive around noon. There were some rusks baking in the oven for Lisa, who never ate much and wasn't picky about food. While it would be possible to eat them right away, baking them first gave them a crunchy texture, thus making them easier to eat. Ignoring those instances when she'd caught a cold and was injured, I had noticed that Lisa was always punctual about time. She should be here soon. Yeah, she should! Even though Lisa wouldn't be singing, Forney seemed to enjoy her presence nonetheless. Since time was too plentiful and only practiced Lisa's piece, whenever I played something else, Forney would take the cue and sing along. I was reminded time and time again that Forney's voice really was beautiful. It was such a shame that only I could perceive it. If only Lisa could hear it, she could learn a lot from Forney's example. Coming! Hello. Hey, come on in. Propping her dripping wet umbrella against the front door, Lisa entered the room. She seemed to be using it properly as her hair and clothes were completely dry. Since she was still recovering from her cold, it was best for her to take such precautions. Oh, what a wonderful smell, Lisa muttered, glancing in the direction of the kitchen. Her voice had recovered for the most part. Perhaps she'd be able to sing today. Or maybe we should still be careful. Better safe than sorry, after all. You didn't eat anything this morning, right? No, but even so, I'm not that hungry. You should still have something to eat. I'll join you. Okay. I directed Lisa to a chair, then left to prepare a simple meal. I hadn't eaten since this morning myself, so something more substantial might have been nice, but I wanted to eat with Lisa, so I would compromise a bit. I specially prepared an excellent cafe latte by mixing together warm milk and espresso in a 3-to-1 ratio. I retrieved the baked rusks from the oven, aligning them on a plate, and placed them on the table. Let's eat. Yes, let's. I wonder when it came to be that Lisa became able to converse so naturally. The Lisa of the past, who was so reserved and would stutter all the time, had all but vanished. It was clearly due to my influence, but I didn't recall having done anything particularly significant. At first, I selfishly started playing my fortel alongside her singing. She always had a frightened expression on her face, cautious of me, who had suddenly appeared in her quiet haven. But after I had seen her truly blissful visage, singing all by herself, I became unable to leave her alone. All I could do for her was enable the performance of ensembles. But Lisa gradually opened her heart to me, and even started smiling at times. I was so happy about that I ended up ambushing her at the old school building again and again. From that point on, I think I slowly began to fall in love with her. And because of that, I ended up hurting a certain other girl. Oh, hi, Shane! You wanted to go by Mom. Sorry, one of my cats, he walked by me and brushed his tail against my leg. A girl very dear to me. A girl who was once my girlfriend. But now, I believed this result had been for the best. Witnessing Lise's smile before me right now reinforced my conviction. What's the matter? Sorry, I was just lost in thought. It's nothing. Really? You were looking quite happy, though. I was? You were. Lise shot back cheerfully and took a bite out of a rusk. While I had baked quite a few, Lise had eaten a lot for her doing, so the plate was now almost empty. Want some more? That's okay, I'm full. I really think you should eat a bit more. Lise blushed, as though suddenly remembering something embarrassing. My recollection of the past event was triggered as well. Anyway, what shall we do today? How's your throat? I think it's mostly healed, but... Lise tried to produce some sounds as one would while doing vocal exercises. You shouldn't push yourself. If you act precariously while recuperating, the injury will never heal. Lise immediately began coughing, rubbing her throat in anguish. I have no problem with regular conversation, though. You should take it easy today. There's no rush. The graduation recital was on the 20th of this month. While it was true that we only had 2 weeks left, the last time we rehearsed, our performance had already been nearly perfect. While Miss Cordell would probably disagree, there didn't seem to be any issues regarding the harmony between us, which was the most important aspect of the matter. Lise had been singing that song from the start, so there were no doubts about her level of experience. And while I couldn't practice synchronization with Lise's voice, I was playing the piece every day, so I'd had plenty of practice at this point. If we focused our effort on rehearsing throughout the final week, the margin of error would be thin. I at least had that much faith in Lise's capabilities. About that, I was thinking of making a score sheet. Ah, you're right. It would leave a bad impression if we were to appear on stage without the proper equipment, regardless of how well we perform. Right. Besides, I want to keep your arrangement of the piece for future reference. Arrangement? It could hardly be called that. That's not true. I think it really suits the song. That reminds me, what about the original? We probably should have used that as a reference from the start. I hadn't really considered it before, as I hadn't expected us to become partners. I think it'd be for the best if we copied the original instead. Actually, about that score, I don't have it. I'm merely singing the song from memory. You don't have a score? No, due to certain circumstances, I don't have it on hand. In fact, I even added the lyrics to it myself. You didn't remember the lyrics either? Then how? I heard the song a lot when I was little, that's how I remembered. When you were little, huh? Do you at least remember the name? The archive at school might have it. I'm free in the morning anyway, so I could look it up. No, I took a glance at the score when I was little, and it was handwritten, so it's not famous or anything. I see. I guess there's nothing we could do then. So, while I was listening to you play it today, I felt like transcribing it anew. It really is a nice song. Thank you. Nothing. Anyway, I'm going to make my preparations. For some reason, Lise thanked me after my words of praise, then bashfully averted her eyes as she began to get ready. She placed some fresh sheets of staff paper and a pen on the desk, then turned toward me. Go ahead, I'll transcribe it as you go. We did something like that during class, didn't we? I was pretty bad at it. I think it's fun. I'll put in some extra effort then. Okay, please do your best. Go, Chris! This was the only piece Forney couldn't sing along to. She had never heard the vocals before, and even I still couldn't fully recall the lyrics. Forney was in her usual spot on the windowsill, her wings fluttering as she leisurely listened to me play. Oh, Jean! He's laying at my feet. Oh my god. Me, on the other hand, I had been able to play pretty casually up until now, but now that I knew that my performance was going to be engraved in paper, I was getting a little nervous. Even so, I had the fundamentals perfectly lined up in my head, and I had plenty of practice. My fingers moved naturally as I almost unconsciously brought the piece to a close. Perhaps really wanting to sing, or perhaps in a similar half-conscious state, Lise tried to start singing but ended up in a coughing fit. Not wanting to disturb the performance by stopping and calling out to her, I motioned for her to cease with my eyes. After that, I went back to concentrating on the piece, and she focused on the sheet in front of her again. Nicely done. Same to you. There were 2 piles of freshly copied sheets in front of Lise. It took her until the brink of evening to finish, perhaps because she wanted to make a faithful reproduction of the sheet in her memories. Also, converting passages formed on the basis of emotion into concrete symbols was delicate work. It's done. This one is for you. Thanks. The neatly written letters and symbols were what you would expect from a girl like Lise. Her good upbringing became evident in tendencies such as these. I will keep the other one. Lise brought the sheet to her chest as though holding something precious. Those kinds of feminine gestures really suited her. Shall we call it a day? Sure. It would be bad to get caught, coming home too late. Yes. Yesterday and the day before yesterday, she'd come here after school and stayed until a little later than now. But today was a free day, so we had already spent plenty of time together. Now, if only her throat would heal, everything would be perfect. We were doing surprisingly well as partners, despite the discouragement of others. If we were to put on a good performance at graduation now, Lise's friends would surely acknowledge her. This might just be the only chance for her to express herself. Judging from Graves' approach to music, as long as we produced a competent result, he would undoubtedly accept it. Encompassing a positive mindset, I decided to focus on the eminent graduation recital for now. Okay, let's go before it gets too dark. Okay. The 2 of us were walking through the narrow alleys, sharing the same umbrella. Walking Lise back home like this had become somewhat habitual. These moments in which we could be within such close proximity of each other were precious to me. Are you sure you're not getting wet? Huh? No, I'm fine. I noticed a portion of Lise's shoulder was getting hit by raindrops, and inclined the umbrella toward her a bit. While she didn't have a fever, her throat still hadn't completely healed. I remembered her coughing when she tried to sing earlier, which made me a bit concerned about her well-being. As for me, I was used to walking in the rain, so it wasn't a big deal. Okay then. Yes. Lise crept a little closer to me, closing the distance between us even more. Neither of us had yet expressed how we felt about the other. But Lise had probably already realized my feelings for her, just as I was aware of hers. I was confident that it wasn't a misunderstanding. The opportunity simply had yet to arise. I couldn't exactly blurt out those words on the spot. There was no doubt in my mind that the right time to tell her would come, like on the day of graduation, or perhaps afterward. Until then, our current relationship would suffice. I slanted the umbrella toward Lise a bit more as we continued on our way to her house. Thank you very much for walking me home. Don't mention it. Get well soon, okay? Yes. I'm not blaming you or anything. I just want you to heal up and get better as soon as possible, I said to Lise, who had cast her eyes to the pavement. She clearly felt guilty for not being able to rehearse. I know. Anyway, don't push yourself, okay? Okay. Here, keep the umbrella with you. I gave Lise the umbrella so she wouldn't get wet the next time she came over to my house. She accepted it happily and trotted inside. After watching her disappear, I went back to my apartment. It was dark by the time I returned home. Before entering, I checked the mailbox. There was nothing inside, simple emptiness. It somehow made me feel proportionately hollow inside. I hadn't written a reply to Ari last time, so this remorse was to be expected. Besides, I had nothing more to discuss with her. I had chosen this path in life for myself, yet, somehow, I was unable to shake off this feeling of loneliness. I awoke at noon and spent the day relaxing. I even did a few ensembles with Forney. While I was engaged in such activities, the time waiting for Lise passed quickly. Assuming she would walk at a leisurely pace to my room after class, she could be here at any minute now. Ah, there she is! Yeah. Hey, Lise. Chris-senpai. Lise stood in front of the entrance, looking depressed. It was a complete 180 from the mood she was in when we parted last night. Lise? She was gripping the umbrella in her hand. She wasn't wet and she didn't look sick to me. The ghastly white bandage was still snugly wrapped around her neck. However, she seemed to display the same withdrawn behavior as she did back when I first met her. Did something happen? No, come on in. Okay. Did something happen to her again? It seemed like every time I found things finally working out for us, they would come crumbling down again. Lise was being unusually stiff. She seemed to have reverted to her past self by quite a bit. Have a seat. Will you tell me what happened? I don't know. You don't know? Don't know what? I don't know. Lise muttered repeatedly, averting her eyes as though she were frightened by or of something. Lise? I didn't know what was going on anymore. I could no longer think of anything appropriate to ask. Even so, Lise seemed to be the one most confused right now. I can't sing. What do you mean? Lise finally muttered something that gave a hint as to the cause of her behavior. I can't sing. I don't know. She repeated herself again. What does she mean by I can't sing? You can't sing as in physically? Yes, I had some singing drills during class. Did your throat still hurt? It didn't. The pain has been gone since yesterday. Then why can't you? I don't know. But, right, did you see a doctor? No. If there's still something wrong with your throat... There's nothing wrong with it! Lise suddenly raised her voice. Sure enough, judging from the clarity of her voice, there seemed nothing wrong with her throat. Then what? Please, Chris-senpai, could you play the foretell for me? With your foretell, maybe... I could do that any time. More importantly... Please! Lise? Please. Lise pleaded to me, tears welling up in her eyes. Chris, what happened to Lise? Forney cut in during an interval of silence. It managed to raise my spirits a bit. Lise's anguish had affected me as well, but Forney's words allowed me to stay calm. Of course, I was unable to reply to her, so I met her gaze and just nodded lightly. Hey, I don't know what's going on, but how about playing for her? Lise had pleaded me rather vehemently, making me believe she probably had good reason to. Before trying to figure out the cause of her inability to sing, it might be better to put her at ease first. Got it. I'll play right away. I had already made the required preparations. All that was left was to sit down and play. Lise, this is what you want, right? Please. Still feeling a bit confused, I began to play. Lise closed her eyes and let her body get carried away by the music. My worries eased slightly. I continued to play. And... Right before the vocal part was supposed to start, Lise let out a few groans, then went into a coughing fit. Lise! Senpai? Lise staggered backwards, shaking her head. Maybe your throat just hasn't completely healed yet? It was clear from Lise's behavior that wasn't the case, but there was nothing else I could say to her. Hey, what does your throat look like now? Wondering what was underneath the bandage, I reached out my hand toward her neck when... No! Lise let out a scream and swiped away my hand. Her eyes were wide with terror. Lise! Wait! I quickly ran after her. But in my hurry, my legs got entangled, making me stumble and unable to catch up. Whew, her dad did something to her, didn't he? Amidst the downpour, I recounted where Lise could have run off to. Either the road toward her house or toward school. I couldn't spot Lise in either of those directions. Lise! Which way should I go? I didn't have time to dawdle. I had to decide fast. Regardless of where she had run off to, I decided to head to the place where she would eventually return. I made sure to check my surroundings while running as well. It was a weekday afternoon, so there weren't many people around. I ran and ran, constantly on the lookout for the girl. I never got the feeling she was in such bad shape, but that might have been merely my own misjudgment. Perhaps her condition was bad enough for her to be unable to sing. Worried that she might have collapsed somewhere along the way, I ended up not progressing too quickly. Would it be better if I ran straight to her house? Or should I progress while searching the area for Lise, who might have collapsed somewhere? With that dilemma in mind, my eyes continued to scan my surroundings for a trace of the girl. In the crevices of narrow alleyways, under the eaves of the stores. Finally, at a pace only slightly faster than it would have been when walking leisurely, I entered the new town. And I finally spotted Lise's retreating figure at the gate of the mansion. It was unlikely that I would be allowed to go inside. Beyond that point, all of the land was private property. I didn't know what exactly would happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if people would come out of the house to apprehend me. But I still just managed to confirm Lise walking unsteadily toward the front door and disappearing inside. At that sight, I felt some relief. She'd no longer be able to get into an accident, and there would surely be people inside to take care of her. The worst case scenario of her collapsing on the street had been avoided at least. Lise. Even so, this outcome didn't call for much optimism either. Why was Lise unable to sing? She told me she didn't know why. I naturally suspected her throat, but Lise denied this. What bothered me was that bandage, which had been wrapped around her neck for a full week now. I wouldn't be able to see her again today, and chances that she would come over tomorrow seemed slim. So what was I to do? Was there something I could do for her? Sorry. With those thoughts running through my mind, I continued my path through the rain. Going to school tomorrow was probably the best option for now. If I asked Miss Cordell, she could probably tell me which class she was in and when she had lessons. Perhaps I'd be able to get a word in with her in between classes. And even if I wouldn't, I could still wait for her at the gate after class. In any case, it looked like I was going to spend my time at school tomorrow. Due to yesterday's events, I ended up getting little sleep. But I had to go to school, even if I had to drag my sleep-deprived body there by force. Miss Cordell seemed to know a lot about Lise, so I could probably get something useful out of her. It didn't have to be anything specific. Information like which class she attended would suffice. In the end, I had to talk things out with her myself. When I arrived at the classroom, Miss Cordell was lazily slumped into a chair reading a book. "Oh, Chris, what's wrong? I doubt you're here for practice, seeing as you didn't bring your foretell." "Miss Cordell, there's something I'd like to ask you." "What is it? Is it important enough to justify coming all the way out here?" Miss Cordell put on a more serious face and looked my way. "Do you know what class Lise is? I mean, Lice'S is in?" "Why do you want to know?" "We had a little disagreement." While perhaps not entirely accurate, it would be difficult to explain the actual situation to her. After all, not even I, and perhaps not even Lise, entirely understood what was going on. "That's unexpected. Are you going to apologize to her?" "Something like that." "Liesl is in class 1-2 of the foretell department, I believe. Since it's still the beginning of the term, their class schedule should still be on the bulletin board." "Thank you." "Fighting at a time like this, huh? What exactly did you do?" "That's what I'd like to know." "You're not even aware of your own wrongdoings. Just remember that there isn't much time left. Don't let it end like this." "I'll see to that." "When did you become so proactive?" "For the record, I have been taking this seriously." "That's good. Now, hurry before the bell rings." "Yes, ma'am." "Oh, hi, my baby." Shane is he moved towards the other side of my feet. I quickly went to check the first year foreteller schedule. Second period on Tuesday would be harmonics in lecture room 3. For freshmen, all classes were mandatory. It was also a music class, so chances were slim that Lise would skip. Since I could still make it before the beginning of second period, I hurried back to the main building. From what I could tell by peeking inside the hallway, Lise wasn't there. Maybe I should ask someone. The bell hadn't rung yet, so anyone was free to enter the lecture room. But if someone from another year, such as myself, were to enter, people would be surprised and stare at me for being the odd one out. While I personally didn't fuss that much over what people thought of me, it could bring negative attention toward Lise. Trying my best not to stand out, I decided to call out to a student who was about to enter the room. Excuse me." The girl seemed to be in a bit of a hurry, which wasn't surprising considering class was about to start. In a normal situation, I would never have been capable of executing such an inconvenience. But this wasn't exactly a normal situation. Are you a student of foretell class 1-2? Yes. Would you allow me to pose a question? Do you know if Lice'S Cesarini is in this class? She is. Did she attend the first period class? Beats me. I don't recall seeing her around today. There was an obvious change in her attitude the moment Lise's name was mentioned. She probably knew I was an upperclassman, which was clearly displayed by the color of my tie. Even so, when I asked her about Lise, she responded with a trace of condescendence. I can't read this word! Well, whatever. I tried saying it in my mind and it didn't sound right. Pardon me. She still managed to give a light bow before entering the lecture room. As I couldn't follow her inside, I decided to have one more look around the room from the door in the back. Oh, Shane, you're being so cute today. Hi. I wouldn't have trouble identifying Lise, even if it were from behind. Of that much I was certain. But she wasn't there. After I was convinced, I decided to head to the cafeteria to kill some time. Oh my goodness, baby, thank you for the kisses! Lise obviously wasn't in the cafeteria either. It was merely a force of habit that made me come here. After having a look around the cafeteria, I immediately felt like leaving again. Even if I saw Torta, there was nothing I could discuss with her now. What happened to Lise? If she posed me such a question, I would surely falter and cause her to worry about me. The outside world was still covered by the hush of morning. But that is all the time that I have for this episode, guys. So if you liked it, hit that like button down below. And don't forget to subscribe. I love you guys so much, and I will see you next time. Bye!